Let's keep it moving right here. All right, let's keep this moving, brothers and sisters. So that was, I guess we'll call the first one a flat earth disclaimer, right? A flat earth disclaimer, the plain truth about the plain earth, right? And in continuing, right, to articulate what is both testified, right, by the ancients, and we're looking at a still right here from a video that we had posted up last year called Flat Earth, how ancients knew, how ancient Egyptians and Hebrews knew. And this video has been reposted by a few others as Flat Earth Secrets Ancient Knew About Flat Earth. Now, as we mentioned before, in our view and from our reading and discerning of scripture, that the earth is not flat. There are heights and there are depths. But what is clearly observable and testifiable within the ancient scrolls and the scriptures, and also by our own observation, is that the horizon is level. There's a level horizon, or we can say there's a flat horizons. Actually, in a little more scrutinizing of scripture and also the available evidence, there is two horizons. Right? There are two horizons. There are the east and the west, right? And we're here in the Western world, in the Western horizon. There's the east and there's the Western horizon. Now, as we study the scriptures and as we recognize the fact that Moses was learned in all the wisdom, the chokmah, right, of the Egypts, of the Bnei Mitzrayim, the Bnei Mitzrayim, of the sons of Egypt. It's interesting when we start to compare, right, and contrast. Right? Compare and contrast. We did this with the Nut and the Geb, right? Point of view and reference, and also seeing within Genesis or Bereshith how Adam was formed, or some would say reformed, but was Yetzer from the Ophar or the Afar of the Aduma. So we have Adam, Aduma, right? So even within the word sound, we have that point of view and that reference, like Ish and Isha on that particular level. Now, when we look at Nut, right, according to the Bnei Mitzrayim or the ancient Egyptians, Nut is arced over. Well, first of all, she is a she. This is interesting too. When we start to look at the particular gender references within the Shemitic scripture, the Afro-Shemitic scriptures, such as the Hebrew Bible. Also, when we look into the Ethiopic and the Ethiopic book of Enoch, the Metzhafa Hanok, and also the Ethiopic book of Jubilee, of the Metzhafa Kufale, also known as Little Genesis. And we start to scrutinize these works and study these works, and also, look and listen to the research of other researchers. It is very interesting, the evidence that actually proves that the earth is not a ball or ball. The earth is not a ball or a ball or a globe. The earth is not a globe, right? This is the point that really we need to affirm. Now, whether we agree with or we don't agree with a lot of the flat earth speculation by some of those special interest groups, there are certain groups out there that are seeking to put out a particular flat earth view, right? And even seeking to be very it's almost like a I can say almost dictatorial in this science and teaching. I think we need to recognize that it's something that we all need to explore, right, for ourselves. But the main thing is to break one's out, right, of that deceived view that everything that we have been told about the heavens and the earth and the depths is actually what it is, right? Because we get to recognize from the scriptures and from Revelation in particular, just to refer to this, that the old serpent, right, the dragon and the old serpent has deceived the whole world. Now, it might not seem so important, but it is something as basic as whether the earth is a ball, whether the earth is flat, or whether the earth is plane, causes so much vehement resistance. It's like ones say you can't, once have bought into something that they have not even investigated. And this is probably the first time that maybe we all are really beginning to seriously scrutinize this. And not saying that, well, you need to believe, and ones are seeking to force one to say, well, the earth is flat. Well, is the earth flat? Right? Is it really flat? Is it flat? I think we should look at the fact that it is not a planet. A planet is a wandering star. Even NASA admits in some of their once classified but now released documents, I don't know whether through the WikiLeaks or Snowden or whatnot like that, a lot of these things got out there, and that makes sense why they were so upset, with some of these whistleblowers and ones leaking information, because ones working in these different intelligence agencies, right? Just as regular people like you and me, come across certain files and read and say, what? You mean this is the truth of it? But then they recognize they have to be partakers in lying and deceiving, and this continued deception, right, of the populi, or the populace, or the people, right, humanity. Right. So much of this has gotten out, and they have revealed that back in, I think, the 70s, right, NASA has in its own documentation that the earth is a non-rotating, right? It's a non-rotating plane. Right. NASA document that, I think a few documents that actually reveal that. I think it was in CDF, conspiracy dude Fury. He has a particular vid or so, I think more recent video about the whole flat earth thing right there. Check that out. I think he also has that documentation. He references that documentation and gives like an on-screen, kind of snapshot of that particular information. So ones, don't have to believe anything that we're saying, but go and search it out for yourself, right? Go and prove it for yourself. Anywhere that you stand on earth, especially at a certain height or an altitude, right? Whether it's on top of the roof of a building, and if it's a pretty tall building, and you look around, what do you observe, right? What is clearly observable, right? When you look around, right? What do you observe when you look around? The thing that you observe when you look around, is that the earth, right, is not a ball. Right? That's the thing that you can clearly observe. See, here's what happens. People look up, right? And when they look up, what you see is the arc of the firmament, right? When you look up, you see the arc of the firmament. And when you're looking at the arc of the firmament, know this, that the ancients already saw it, right? And they already scientifically, in their own ancient scientific, you could say, expression, sought to define it as Nut, right? Nut. Here we have the waters above the firmament, right? And here we have the firmament. What is the firmament? Now we can go into the Hebrew. We've done this in previous vids, right? Going into the Hebrew of the heavens, and hopefully we'll go over this again, right? Because this is a really very interesting, right? And it is a very interesting subject matter. And unless you just lock down, some folks and some brothers and sisters, even amongst I and I are like, we gone mad, we gone crazy to believe this. But then hold on for a moment, right? Let's look at the observable evidence. Have you noticed when you're at a particular height, whether on a roof, a mountaintop, or, where you could look around, you could look down and look around, you notice that the earth is always, right, flat, right? The earth is flat. Now, of course, there's buildings, the land, the plane truth of the plane earth is that it's level and there's no spherical curve. Now, there is the illusion, that you might see with your eyes, or really you really don't see with your eyes, but you imagine it because you've already been led to believe that the earth is a globe. See, because you've already been led to believe that the earth is a globe, and you've seen globes, and maybe you have a globe in your house, so forth and so on. You know what I mean? As a child, you grew up with this. For someone to say, no, it's not like that. It is more like a plane. You say, what? And it's not even just, there's a plane that unifies the fields, but it's many different planes. See, this is the thing about the plain truth about the plain earth, just in continuing to go forward with this reasoning, but also to make some very clear disclaimers, because we would not like our brothers and sisters and others to think that, well, we're just buying into everything that ones and ones are putting out there about and concerning the so-called flat earth. In fact, from the very beginning, from the very first couple of vids that we really did put forward with a motive, a forethought, as it were, right, concerning this subject matter, to really address this subject matter, because some of these things we, kind of were addressing quietly in our own private research, because we was noticing that from the ancient scriptures, what were written in the ancient scriptures, and getting past the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant English matrix, and getting more into the Afro-Shemitic, right, and the Ge'ez, and like the Ethiopic and the Hebrew, and even within some of the cross comparison studies within the ancient Egyptian, or the Metu Neter, as ones would call it. But the real root of that, to decipher that, the key to the ancient Metu Neter is really the Ethiopic. Right? It's really that Afro-Shemitic, the Akala Ge'ez, the Kala Ge'ez. We have a brother, Legacy Alen, who has gone into that very, very much. And bro, if you're checking this out, I don't know if you have completed that work that you let me know you was working on, but definitely would like to, get some communication from you, and thank you for the other information that you shared. A brother named Legacy Alen has gone into a decipherment of the ancient Metu Neter based on the Tigrinya and based on the Akala Ge'ez, right? Or Ethiopic, we say Ethiopian, languages. And when you think about it for a moment, since the Nile River, or the Hape, the Nahar, is the only one of the few rivers that actually go from south to north, right? And therefore it must pass through, and some of the rivers actually begin with the mountains of the moon in what we would call ancient Tob, or the good land, the Tob land, Tobia, which the Greeks, upon hearing Tobia, called it Ethiopia. Right. So actually the term Ethiopia has an indigenous root, and that is Tobia, or the Tob land, when Tob in the Hebrew means the good land. So the root of we could say of the ancient Egyptian civilization, at least one of the true roots, is the Ethiopic root. Right, as we would, refer to it. So in looking through some of these scriptures, right, like the book of Enoch, and it's very clear when we look at the Bible, especially in the New Testament, right, that the New Testament writers, and even the Moshiach himself, Rabboni Yeshua himself, were quite familiar with and acquainted with these writings that in the Western Gentile world were lost, right, until virtually maybe 200 to 300 years ago. And these documents speak of the sun and even the moon as orbiting. The sun and the moon as orbiting, right, over the plane Earth, or the Earth plane. That the sun and the moon orbits above the Earth plane. And this is also has been observable, right, by even so-called amateur, astronomers, and one sending up, certain kind of high altitude, like weather balloon type devices with cameras on it, actually seeing the sunspots on the cloud. Now the liars and deceivers would like to make us believe, well, that's just our perception of it, that it's really 93,000 miles so-called away. Well, that is not what we observe by natural scientia, or natural scientia, by natural science or knowledge or gnosis, right? Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Now, this brings us to the heavens, right? See, the earth is a plane, but the heavens is a globe. The heavens turn. It's the heavens that turn around this plane, or the plane earth, the earth plane. It's the heavens that's a globe, right? This is what we have observed. And this is also what we can point to within the evidence that we have, both ancient, right, modern, and much of it, right, is observable, right? Much of it is observable because we're not the first to look up and observe the heavens, right? We're not the first to look around, right, and observe the earth, right? Or to recognize the depths, the amazing, we could say, majesty, right, of the creation. See, it's about the creation, right? It's about the blameless creator, right? And in the scriptures, it's pointed out that he who created the heavens, the earth, and the depths, right? So these are three areas to look at. We have the heavens, we have the earth, and then we have the depths. I have the Tehillim right here. And Tehillim is the Mizmor, or the Psalms of David, right? In the Hebrew and an English translation. So when we go to Psalm 24, just hear this right here, right? Right? As we seek to build on the ancient truth and to see that the ancient truth is observable. Ones will say, well, this was just poetry. Well, yes, no doubt there was the spirit of, the spirit of truth is poetic. They talk about poetic justice. Yes, the scriptures is poetic. And yes, there is a so-called allegorical, right, or a parabological, a parable, or a proverbial sense of a similitude. We have the allegories, the likeness, right? The scriptures does contain that, and even within the Hebrew, but it's also very scientific. This is what we want to point out, that not only is the Hebrew, or the scriptures, especially when we're looking at the Hebrew, but even also the Greek, right? But first things first, get a good groundation right here. It says the earth is the Lord's, right? The earth is the Yahweh's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. It says, for he hath founded it upon the seas. Hold up for a moment. So the earth, it says the earth is the Yahweh's, right? La Yehovah ha'eretz, right? La Yehovah, la Yahweh ha'eretz. The earth is the Yahweh's, the he who be who he be. Baruch Hu, Baruch Hashem, right? Blessed be he, blessed be the name. Meloah, and the fullness thereof. The fullness thereof. Tebel, the inhabited regions, the Tebel, the world, as it says, the Tebel, right? The world and they that dwell therein, where Yoshbei Baha, and those that dwell in her, right? In her. So there's the Tebel. Now, when it says the earth is the Yahweh's, this is a noble preface that has a deep, deep meaning, right? Although Zion Zion was his dwelling place, his presence, his sovereignty extended throughout the world. The same thought occurred in the prayer that's offered, right, for the livocation of Shlomo's Mikdash, or Solomon's temple, where he says, behold, look, see, hine, look, sight, eneho, heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded, in 1 Kings 8:27, right? In 8:27. So we're speaking about the Adonai, the Adonai of the universe. We're speaking about, Melech HaOlam. We're speaking about the eternal king, right? We're speaking about the king of the universe. We're speaking about the universal God, the universal power, right? The true creator, right? The true creator of the heavens, right? And the earth, and also the deeps or the depths called the seas. So in verse 2 of Psalm 24, it says, for he hath founded it. He hath founded it upon the seas. He founded it upon what? He founded it upon the seas. Founded what? What is the it? The world, the Tebel, right? The inhabited portions, right? The portions that are inhabited by men, by humanity, by human being, right? By human beings. He founded the earth. Notice this, and the world is founded upon the seas. Right? It's founded upon the seas. Is this not the view that we can take a view of and we can verify, right, with our own observation? Yes, this is the view, right, as well as the point of view that is observable, right, with our own observation, that we can observe this. We can know this, right, for ourselves. That yes, it might seem, and it is very poetical, right? The scriptures has its divine poetry, right? Because as we said, there's poetic justice. There is that harmony, right, in the truth. The truth is harmonious. You know, it's like when we come across, like when the brother had said a thing, Dreddy, right? Dread from, You've Been Exposed, the YouTube channel. When he said that when he was looking through, you know, he has a telescope, like I think a high grade, pretty quality, high grade telescope. And he was observing, he was looking at the so-called planets, right? And when he was looking at the planets, he noticed that it was like looking through water. Right? It almost just appeared that the planets, so-called, right? Really, there's no such thing as, well, planet is a wandering star. Right? These are not wandering stars. That's why the earth is not a planet. It's a plane. We look at this word planet. We see this etymology when it first came into vogue, into usage. Also the science or the Euro pseudoscience, right? That was used, you know, this was all part of this conspiracy, this heliocentric, this kind of apostasy, this great deception, right? This great deception. As it says, the dragon, the serpent has deceived the whole world, because the principle is as above, so below. Even the Messiah, Rabboni Yeshua, says that whatever you bind on earth, right, you bind in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth, you loose in heaven. So now let's go into this right here, if we will, right? Since we are here in the reasoning, let's go a little further and let's bring this up, right? Just so you can see this, because it's very important for us to be able to see these truths. Not saying that one has to, has to believe it, right? Or has to accept it. It'd be good if one logically, right, in spirit and in truth, doesn't accept certain things and go and find the truth for themselves. Right now, here, this is interesting. Here is Psalm 24. Right, we have a psalm where it said that the psalmist, speaking of David, right, Dawid HaMelech, he affirms a universal kingship, right, of the sovereign creator, reminds his people that only the morally pure are qualified to worship him, right, are qualified to worship, who really recognize, right, what this is worth, what this is about, right, and celebrates his splendor as a mighty warrior king. This is how this psalm is characterized right here. But let's look at this right here. Now, one will say, what about this right here? Remember, we said that the heavens is a globe. The earth is a plane and the heavens is a globe, right? The earth is a plane and the heavens is a globe. So let's bring this up right here. So here we have Psalm 24, right? Psalm 24, a Psalm of David, right? A Mizmor le David, right? A Mizmor. The earth, right? The earth, right? Let's get the word, the Eretz, right? The Eretz. So we have the word Eretz, the earth. The earth is Yahweh, right? The earth is Yahweh's. Baruchu Baruch Hashem is he who be who he be's, and the fullness thereof. The fullness, right? The Milo, right? All of her fullness thereof. The world. Now, here is interesting, right? Here is interesting because you'll see how a lot of this false philosophy has even crept up, into some of this right here. But if you do due diligence, you can see what is true from what has been, added to it, right? Perhaps like with a lot of us, we have been led to believe these things, right? So here we have the Tabel. The Tabel, it says the earth as moist and therefore inhabited. So we had two words. We have the earth is the Lord's, right? And it says the world, right? The world, the earth as moist and therefore inhabited. They say by extension, the globe. This is incorrect right here. Strike that out. By implication, it means the inhabitants, right? And it's speaking of the land, right? The habitable part, the part that's habited. So we have two terms. We have the earth. Notice this. The earth is Yahweh's, right? The earth is Jehovah's, right? The earth is Jehovah's, La Yehovah ha'eretz, right? And the fullness thereof. Lo'aha, and all of her fullness, the world, or the Tabel, right? And they that dwell therein. Why Yoshbei Baha, right? Why Yoshbei Baha, and all those who sit therein. So let's go to this root here. Does this have anything to do with globe? Notice what the word means. You see how they inserted that there within the Strong's Concordance in the secondary way, right? To still try to eke in there that whole global. That global idea has to do with Baal and Baal, right? But here we have the H2986 Yabal, right? What does Yabal mean? It means to flow, right? To flow, causatively to bring, especially with pomp, right? So it means to bring, to carry forth, to flow. So we have Yabal. You know what Yabal, right? We have Yabal. You see Yabal here, it's a stream. It's a water course, a stream, a water course. All right. Remember, we're looking at the Tebel. We have the antediluvian patriarch Yabal, right? Right. Then we have Yabel, right? Yabel there. Now we go over here. We're getting into another word, right? So the idea, the central idea, right? The central idea we have for the inhabited portions are the portions which are well watered, right? Because man, he can live a while without food, for a moment, but not, without water, right? So here you see the first entry means to flow, right? To flow. So here we go right here, to flow. And then it can mean to bring, right? A stream, right? And then also Jubilee, Yabal, Yobel, right? We also have that link right there, right? So maybe it sounds similar in English, right? Yobel, Yobal, Yabal, global, right? But it's not the same, right? See, the whole global idea implies a ball, right? That the earth is a ball. But we can clearly see, right, on the two horizons, right? We can clearly see the flat horizon or the level horizon. So right here, this term for the world, right, is the Tebel. The Tebel is the earth, is the moist and the inhabited portions, right? As we can clearly see that there are portions which are not inhabited. So when we talk about the inhabited portions, if we look at the ancient maps where they were green, where it was green, where it was fertile, right? Because it was very hard to dwell in those areas like the desert or the cold, right? Areas, very difficult. Now we have a couple of scriptures right there as a point of reference that reinforces the idea. Just take a snapshot of it and, follow up on it as well, right? But let's go to the next verse, because the next verse is the real significant verse in establishing, right, this scriptural and biblical science. Here it says, for he hath found it. Right. So the word, yasad, for he hath found it. He has done what? He has founded it upon the seas. Right. Kihua, al yamim, yisada, for he hath founded, yasad. Right? Yasad means to set, literally or figuratively, in an intensive way, to found. In a reflexive sense is to sit down together, to settle, to consult. But he has said it so. For he hath founded what? He has founded, right, the earth and the world, the eretz, right, and the tebel, right, the inhabited portions, right, the moist portions. He has founded it upon the seas, upon the yam, right, upon the yam. What is the yam? What is the yam? Right, so here we're in Psalm 24, right, to establish, right, that the earth, right, the earth is founded, right, on, we can say, for lack of a better word, should we say the celestial waters? Right? Or waters. There's water everywhere. There is water below the eretz, the tebel, and there is water above. Right? There is water above. It says he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. So we have kihu al yamim, right? Yamim yisadaha. So the yam, right? What is the yam? It's a sea. As breaking in noisy surf, or it's a large body of water. You see right here, a large body of water. You see large bodies of water. All right. Remember, there's water below. There's water above. There is, according to the scripture and also the observation, water all around. Secondarily, specifically with the article, when it has the article Hayam, they say it's in reference to the Mediterranean Sea. The third entry, sometimes it can also refer to a large river or an artificial basin. Right? Fourthly, locally, the West, or really, right? Or really the South, right? Really the South. Now they say it's from an unused root. They say meaning to roar, right? So this word is translated as sea, maybe a seafaring man, seashore, south, west, western, westward. Right. Notice this right here. You see in the King James translates this as south as well as western, or the west side, westward, western. Look over here. This is the east, right? This is Ethiopia, Africa. This is the Far East, so-called Far East Africa, the Middle East, this area. So you come over here. This is South America. This is America, right? Over in the West. So we were over here, came through over here, ended up over here, spread through the Americas, South America, North America, the Caribbean, roughly right about here. If you can see where we're at right there. Let's see if we zoom in, right? But if we look to the west, right, that's why if you look at the flight patterns, it's interesting, the flight patterns. Because if you look at a globe, on a globe, this is Australia. Australia is not that far from the west coast of America, right? Australia is not that far from the west coast of America, right? But this is the area they call the Ring of Fire too. Notice this is the area they call the Ring of Fire. Have you ever wondered, there's a ring of fire under all this water? What? So tell us that there's a ring of fire underneath all this water. Wow. And all the water, no matter how much water there is, it doesn't out this ring of fire. But notice right here where it says, for he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. Upon the seas, the word here, the Yamim, right? The Yamim, not just a Yam, not just a sea, right? Not just a large body of water, but the large bodies of water. So literally it's saying upon the large bodies of water. Look how very large from a true, this is like an Enochian view. This is how Enoch was able to cite it, right? From this sort of view, right? Even NASA and them, right? And NASA, they can't get up to that sort of a height, right? They barely can get up to that sort of a height, right? To really observe, because it's the firmament. Remember, there's a firmament, and that firmament separates the waters below from the waters above the firmament. So basically what we have is water, water, water everywhere. This is an observable, right, fact, right? This is an experiential fact, right? So here in Psalm 24, right, in Psalm 24, the seas, the floods, the world, the Tebel was thought of as resting upon subterranean waters. From the most ancient of times, the world, or the Tebel, remember there's the Eretz, translates as the earth, right? Or we can say the land, and the Tebel is the inhabited regions, the moist regions. These are the regions that have greenery, right? That's what it's speaking about. The Tebel is the green, right? The places that have greenery, right? Or have moisture, right? Have water, right? Because then we have the drier parts. They are also the part of the Eretz, right? So there's two terminologies used in Psalm 24 where it says the earth is the Yahweh's, is Jehovah's, and the fullness thereof. La Yehovah ha-eretz uma lo'ah, right? The world and they that dwell therein, right? Tebel where Yoshbei Baha, where Yoshbei Bah, the Tebel, right? The Tebel, they translated as world, right? And as we showed you before, they try to insert as a second entry the pseudonym, the false name globe. But then when we go into the root, right? When we go into the root word and the root idea of that word, we find it has to do with the flow and the streams and the waters, right? The waters, the large body of waters, and the flowing waters, right? Large body of waters and the flowing waters, and establish it, right? And establish it. It says right here, establish it upon the floods. We'al neharot, we'al neharot, Yekonene, right? Yekonene, established her, right? Establish her. Now, we're just going to point to these two verses right here in Psalm 24, verse 1 and verse 2, right? Verse 1 and verse 2, right? Verse 1 and verse 2, right? And we can see this very clearly right here. Let's look at the word floods, right? The word floods, right? Naharot, right? The Naharot, the streams, including the sea. So we have the big waters, right? And then in the land masses and under the land masses, right? We have the streams, the floods, especially this is in reference to the Nile, that particular region, and the Euphrates. But it also in a figure of speech, right? Figuratively in the allegorical sense. So this word in the Hebrew both has direct reference points, and then they also have their figurative sense, right? So in this direct sense, it's speaking of a stream, including the sea. This is why we have this so very, very much connected right here where it says, for he hath founded it upon the seas, founding it, right? Setting it upon the seas and establishing it, right? Or establishing her. Literally it says her, right? Within the Hebrew and the Afro-Shemitic her, right? Upon the floods, the Naharot, right? Naharot, the streams. And specifically, we have over here the Nile, between the two rivers. We have the Nile, which goes up from South Africa all the way up along here. And then over here, we have the Euphrates, right? Speaking of that direct region, right? But then in a figurative sense, it can refer to prosperity, right? And this is from the root 5102, Nahar. It means to sparkle. Sparkling, spring water springing up from the depths, right? Figuratively, to be cheerful. Nahar, right? Hence, from the sheen of a running stream, right? So you ever see a running stream and there's that sheen, that sparkle, right? To flow. This idea of to flow, and in a figurative sense, is to assemble. So we have an ancient, a primitive, in the sense of a ge'ez, a ancient, a first word, or a prime root. A prime root. KJV translates this word elsewhere to flow together, and to be enlightened, right? From the idea of the sheen of a running stream, to flow, right? And the sense of to sparkle. But let's look at the verb here, to establish, right? To establish. So let's look at the kun, right? People talk about kun, right? Well, the kun, right? The kun is the root word right here. Ain't that interesting? But we have yekoneneha. What is yekoneneha? Yekoneneha is that she is kuned, right? She is kuned. She is erected, stand perpendicular, right? We have perpendicular. Get to this root right here, kun. This is the Hebrew kun, right? Or kawan, kun, the H3559, right? For he hath founded upon the seas and establish, right? And establish her, right? And Yekoneneha. He's established her, hence causatively to set up in a great variety of applications. Right? And we see a great variety of that application of the blameless creator in the creation and the different land and the water. And just how creation is created. Right? How the blameless creator has created, whether in the literal sense, to establish, to fix, to prepare, to apply, or in the figurative sense, to appoint, to render sure, to be proper or prosperous, right? Proper or prosperous, right? So we see this root word right here. So just in these first, right, in these first two, we can say verses here, where we're speaking of the creation of the world, the establishing, some people would say it's just the ocean currents, but it goes much deeper. Just want to say this for the record, it goes much deeper than just that. But all of that is actually embedded in the sense when we look at the Hebrew, right, hieroglyphs. Is when we look at both the Peshat reading and then we study the key words, right? And studying the key words, we can clearly see this aspect, right? This face. That's why in the scripture, it often refers to the face of the earth, right? The face of the earth. You notice that? The face of the earth, the four corners, right? Notice it also says the four corners of the earth. Some say that's the four cardinal directions of the earth. So then we was gonna get into that right there. But that is a interesting observation in the Psalms, right? In the Psalms, and we can go into even other ancient cultures, right, where they praise the creation and the creator and the creation. And some things were observable, right? But then when the language often gets more, some people say will be abstract. Part of the reason why, to a certain degree, working from what was clearly seen and known, they went to the abstract level of it, is because you have to think about this, that even NASA and the men and the people and the principalities and the powers that be, the powers that be, even they have not. This is why they have lied to folks, concerning the so-called globe and the different CGIF and also what the planets so-called look like. But then anyone who has even a high grade telescope and look at it will clearly recognize one is looking at these light planes as if through water, right? As if through another medium. Also explains why, the so-called astronauts, with their practice in water, right? Because there are waters. So the scripture, the Hebrew Torah, right? And the Hebrew Bible, right? And what Moshe, being learned in all the wisdom of the Egypts, what he has disclosed to us is right and exact. But see, we have to study this, right? And see, in studying this also, it's important to come out of that white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Gentile mind. And see, we're pointing this out not against so much the men and people, but the way of thinking, right? How ones have so-called been led to thunk it, so to speak. Now, people say, well, why do we have this here? Because in looking at this, if you notice this right here, right, is this, right? This right here is also this, right? But the circle right here, right? The circle is the circle of the heavens, right? It's the circle of the heavens. This also can be verified, right, by a contextual and accurate study of both ancient scriptures and texts, such as we could say the Hebrew Torah, but also in ancient Mitzrayim, or so-called Kemet, or Kermet, in ancient Kermet. Actually, if you read the glyphs properly, it'll be Kermet, not Kemet, Kermet. But anyway, in ancient Egypt and the B'nai Mitzrayim, they also understood this. All of the ancients understood, right, that the heavens, right, turn. The heavens is a globe, right, and the earth is a plane, right? The earth is a plane. It's like a unified field, actually, right? A unified field, because there are planes in that unified field, or there are planes in that plane, right? This is the plain truth of the earth. This is why with the flat earth, right, agenda, we kind of pull back off of that and say that, well, the earth is not flat. But what is clear, even observably, is the level, right, horizon, or we can say even the flat horizon, the level horizon. This is very clear, both in a modern observation and even when we look at, from an ancient, right, ancient perspective, whether we go to ancient Mitzrayim, the ancient Egyptians, and ones who tell you that the Egyptians believe that the earth was a ball or something, they're lying to you, right? Because we've shown you basic evidence, and if you interpret it, right, this basic evidence right here, right, this is some basic facts right here, right? These are some basic facts right here, that can be reviewed for oneself. So, in speaking about the firmament, right, and speaking about the ark, right, it is the heavens that turn. The heavens turn around the plane, or the earth plane. The heavens turn around the earth plane. The earth, as Psalm 24 so clearly, right, Psalm 24 so clearly articulates. Let's go over it one more time, a Psalm of David. The earth is Yahweh's and the fullness thereof, the world, or the Tebel, right, and they that dwell and they that dwell therein. Right? Le Dawid Mizmor, La Yahweh Haaretz, Uma Loaha Tebel, We Yoshbei Bah. For he hath founded it, or more correctly, founded her. If you read the Hebrew, founded her, for he hath founded her upon the seas and established her upon the floods. Right? He hath founded her, so the earth plane, right, is founded upon the Yamim. Right, upon the Yamim, upon the seas and the large bodies of water, right, is founded, is Yasad, is set, is founded, right, upon the large bodies of water, the Yamim, and establish, right, Yekono Neha, right, Yekono Neha, he's cooned her, he's established her, right, upon the Naharot, upon the floods. And blessed be he who he be. HaKadosh Baruch Hu.